In this video, we're going to go and look at Logcat in detail. It's very useful, to debug. I know we've talked about Logcat a little bit in the past, but we're now going to get the program to send output to Logcat, and I just want to show you a few of the features because it really is quite powerful and will certainly aid you when you're debugging apps. Okay, as always, go into the Android Developer Tool bundle folder, the Eclipse subfolder, and start Eclipse. And click OK to accept the default workspace. And now we're in our application. Now, one thing I haven't told you, incidentally, while we've been talking, is there's a way to get to any of these little tabs. If you want them to take up the much more space in the screen, you can just double-click them. And you can see there that I've got Logcat, and it's effectively filled pretty well all the screen. So it's a great way. If you double-click it again, you're back to where you were before. This is very useful when you are debugging and you want to quickly see the entire contents of the screen. So we're going to talk more about Logcat shortly. But what we're going to do is we're going to simulate an error. We're going to actually get the application to crash, our standard My First App application to crash, to see what happens in Logcat, and really just to hopefully show you how useful Logcat can be. So to make it crash, we're going to put in some commands that you should probably never do in a program and simulate a crash. So I'm going to create a couple of variables, and incidentally, if you're following along, you'd want to double click, go into the source folder, go into the package name and double click on main activity, and go into the onCreate method, which is a method that's executed when the application starts. So I'm going to type in int for a variable name I equals 0, int j equals 0, and int k equals I divided by j. Now if you're playing along at home, you cannot divide 0 by 0 with a computer program. If you do that, you're going to get an error. Usually a computer will crash when that happens. So we actually want this to crash, just to show you what's going to happen. So I'm going to save that off. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure the simulator is set up. We're going to close down the older version we were running. And we're going to go back here and we're going to run it again. Click on run. You can see it's asking us again which device. We're going to select our Android virtual device and click OK. You can see down the bottom right hand corner it was executing, and we'll tab back over to the emulator, and unfortunately my first app has stopped. Whenever you see something of that along those lines, when it's stopped, generally it's crashed, or there's some extreme memory condition. Usually it's a crash. So I'm going to click OK to accept that and go back into my code. So we're going to double click Logcat now to have a look, investigate further. You can see there's a lot more information here, and if we scroll up in Logcat, we can see here divide by 0 arithmetic exception. And the good thing about this is it actually tells you where it's crashed. So it actually says here we're running in our package org.example.myfirstapp, and it's running in the main activity, which is the name of the class that we were editing, and that's where it's actually crashed. So that's given us a good indication of where the error is. So this is, again, one good reason for Logcat. It very quickly can point out where the error is. Okay, then just as an aside, you can find there's a lot of information in there, and sometimes it can be hard to try and figure out what the problem was. You can do a tag. You can use the tag functionality to try and get a bit more information. So we can type in tag. Oops. You can type it, be a good thing. Android runtime. And we can see now we've broken down, I've just got a far easier to find list. We've excluded a lot of the other things, and that can be a quicker way to find the error. So that's a good way to, or good thing to use Logcat for, is to determine where your program crashed, and to be able to sort of, from there, start diagnosing it a little bit further. But I'm going to double click that again. I'm going to go back to the code. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to comment that code out. Incidentally, to do that, I've just pressed on a Mac, I've pressed Command and the /, and you do Control and / on a PC, and that comments a range of lines. I've just selected the 3 lines and commented them out. So the other thing you can do is you can decide pragmatically to send a message to the Logcat, to the log. So this can be very useful if you want to sort of check which stages of the program are being executed. Now I'm going to type log, and I'm going to hold down Control and press space. Now it gives me some options, and that works on both Mac and Windows. You can see that I've got an option to do org.apache.commons.logging or log, which is from android.util. Make sure when you're doing this, you do select the android.util, otherwise you'll get all sorts of weird errors coming up because you really need to be using the right one. So I'm going to click on and make sure I've selected that. Now when that happens, through the magic of Eclipse, what's happened up here is it's added this automatically for us. So it's really told the program where to look for that log command. So moving on, we're going to actually go back to where we were, log. We're going to type dot. Now we're going to do, there's multiple levels of errors, and we've looked at those a little bit in previous videos. The standard one that most people suggest you use is the debug message. This is when you're testing your programs and maybe looking for an error or just making sure that everything's okay. So we're going to select the D, which stands for debug. Scrolling down, there's an option here you can select E for error. If you want to do an error, and it actually does tell you on the screen what it's going to do there. You can see over the right hand side, send an error log message. This one's going to send a debug message. So I'm going to make sure I've selected that one. And press enter. I need to type a tag, and what I recommend you use for the tag usually is the name of the class. That's the simplest way of doing it. So you can just type in this case, main activity. Whoops, I need double quotes around that. Main activity. Now message would be the message that you want to show in the log. So it might be that something along the lines of successfully finished the on create processing. There you go, that's a simple log. So we're going to save that. Now let's run our app again. Select our Android virtual device, click OK. You can see down the bottom right hand corner it was chugging away, and now it's finished. This time our application has executed okay, and that's because we took out the problem with that was causing the crash. But now if we double click Logcat, and actually what I should have done before I did that was clear the log. So I'm going to do that just to make sure we're sort of coming back from a clean slate. You could leave it in there and go back and try and find it, but it's a lot easier just to clear the log. Then we'll go back and run it again. I'll run it on our Android virtual device as per normal. It's launching in the bottom right hand corner, as you can see. Now we should be able to go over to our device, and the app's running, which is good. And close that. And now if I go to Logcat, double click, we can now see our message there. Main activity, successfully finished the on-create processing. So that has now written that out to the log. And a quick way to find that, we could just type, because we've used the tag main activity, we can type tag main activity. And there you go, that gives us just our messages. So that's a quick way for you to find your messages. So I'm going to clear that log again. We're going to go back to our source code again. And let's add another message. Let's add another one, say down here. This is in the on create options menu, which creates the little like settings or the options for our application, which you probably haven't seen before. So I just want to show you what I mean. That's this little screen up here, the little settings or options. So that's what that little bit of code does. It actually creates that section. So let's put a log statement in there as well. Log.d again. Use main activity again. Also finished the options. I'll save that, and let's run that again. Same deal, select the Android virtual device. It's running in the bottom right hand corner, as you can see, and we'll tab over just to make sure that it is running, which it is. And now if we look at our Logcat, we've now got two messages. Because the tag is still enabled, we can see our messages. So you can see how that's a really quick way to be able to test your code and put in some sort of debug code just to check the status of things, or if there's an error, or just to see whether execution has gone into a particular area. Sometimes I would suggest, I'll go back to the right spot, back to our code. If you're not sure if a particular bit of code is where it's being executed or if it is, put a log in there, a log statement in there, and check and see where that comes up, and then check your logcat to see whether that comes up. Now, the other thing I want to talk about just briefly is those, getting back to the source code again, once you've finished your app and the app goes live in the App Store, you will want to comment out these. You won't want to leave all these log statements in there. Other programming languages, such as C++ and Objective-C, when you put a whole heap of comments in there, they are actually stripped out when the final executable version of the program is created. Now, Java won't do that. Java will still be trying to execute this code at runtime. So you'll definitely want to comment them out like so when you get to the stage, or up to this one as well, of doing the final version of your app and then uploading it to the App Store. But I want to leave that in there because I want to show you one other cute thing. Because you can see the problem here would be if we change this, say, main activity, and we accidentally had a typo there and we typed in a D instead of a C, which let's face it, we're all human. We did a search. We started the app, and we run the app again. Wait till it finishes. Okay, it started. And go back into logcat. Clear out the log this time, which I forgot to do last time. So we'll go back there again. We'll execute it yet again. Okay, now if we go back and have a look, we should still have our app executing, which it has. That's good. We'll come back on that. Now if we go back to Eclipse, double-click logcat, and do a search for tag main activity. Now we typed in main, as you can see, and it has still matched that because the first four letters are the same. But as soon as we start typing activity, we're only going to get, whoops, that's better. We'll only get the one message because of the typo. So it's nice if you are doing this to save yourself a bit of grief. You can do something smart here, and you can introduce a constant. So what we can do is we can select the string, right click it, go to refactor, and select extract constant, and we can change the name to something. We could put something like, we could call it something like debug log. Click OK, and you can see that automatically the code has been changed. That line has been introduced, and if you look at the log here, it's now log.d debug_log. So we would change the other one again. We wouldn't be having a typo. We'd just type in the first few letters, like for DE. Hold down Control and press space and select debug_log. And that way you're really reducing the chances of you coming up with an error because you're typing that each time, and obviously you're not having to make sure that you've typed that perfectly. So that can be a good way too. I suggest you maybe consider doing that. Okay, so that's the main things that I wanted to show you about logcat. It's quite a useful process, and it's something that I do suggest you check out a little bit more as you're furthering your programming experience.